So this is tips and tricks for Sharen's new mods. All right. So understanding ambushed. I think a lot of people confuse this ability with ambushed. When you trigger your invincibility, there's two stages to it, right? There's the base invisibility stage, and there's the ambush stage that is triggered just before you do an ability, right? And a lot of people miss this, but if you're looking at my icons, you see my invisibility, and then right before I do my ability, you see another one pop up. That other one is ambush. What the heck is ambush? So when you go into the modules, ambushed changes your passive ability to caught in ambush, right? And this is what allows you to keep triggering invisibility every single time you do damage to to someone, specifically when you go and kill someone or something. As you see in some of my other videos, this ability at this point in time, until they patch it or if they fix it, or hopefully they don't, also works if you completely eliminate an overshield from a boss or colossi. Will also re-trigger the invisibility if one of the final bosses in dungeons are in their invincibility stage and they spawn other enemies, or they spawn the orbs above them, or they spawn the toxic tanks above them, next to them. If you destroy a toxic tank, destroy the orbs, any of those things are destroyed with your ability in one shot, that also re-triggers your invisibility. So that is what caught in ambush is. But you'll notice that in its base state, if you go to any other mod, it's because this was enhanced, right? So the base passive is Assassinator. And Assassinator basically states that when you're in ambush, then active camouflage resets the cooldown. That's once, right? So with ambushed, it basically changes that to re-trigger active camouflage consistently as long as you kill something. And when you go to the actual mod, right, you go to the active camouflage mod, her number 2, you'll notice there's 2 buffs, right? The first is active camouflage. And notice the symbol that you see, right? Because this is going to be the same symbol that you notice when I actually start to trigger these abilities. You'll notice that active camouflage is base triggered the moment I trigger the ability. And at this state, I get the boost of 30% movement speed and 30% decrease in cooldown. The ambush state you see is a completely different state. That is that little hand that comes up, and you'll see the icon in a second. That is where I get 100% boost in my damage output and a 22% increase in my skill critical hit rate and a 22 increase in my firearm critical hit rate, right? This is only active when ambush is active. And there's 2 times that ambush becomes active. When we go back out, you'll notice that ambush becomes active, 1, when I trigger an ability. You see it's just caught in ambush. Then right when I trigger my ability, you see that other icon come up. But if I wait till my invisibility goes away, ambush then is triggered again. So even when I'm out of my invisibility, I still get that boost in 100% damage output and critical hit, firearm critical attack for about 10 seconds, I believe. I can't remember how long that duration lasts. I got to go back and check. But there's 2 moments where you get that boost in your damage. So you want to take advantage of this, right? So say you're in 400%, you're activating this, you're killing a bunch of things, you're reactivating this, but then I'm running and I run out of people to kill, but I see them and they're a little bit farther for me to get to, and I run out of invisibility. I still have this ambush. So before re-triggering my invisibility, I can go ahead and do that, right? I can go ahead and hit one attack with that buff and then re-trigger my invisibility so that I can still have a benefit while being outside of invisibility. One key thing to really pay attention to, lastly, about this build for ambushed is you'll notice a lot of people just spamming their 1 and their 3. 1 back and forth, 1 and 3 back and forth. You can pretty much do this instantaneous because of the way the build works, and you can see the build somewhere over here. If you have not seen my build, you can see how I built that out, right? But the reason why I don't do my 4 is because of the animation. You might be able to get away with it maybe once, but consistently is going to be very difficult. And honestly, you really just don't need it because of all of the abilities. And in this build, having a boost in speed, a boost in your attack, having 2 attacks of over 1,000 times multiplier on your skill power, being 1 in 3, you really don't need that 4. Like, it's overkill. You could try it, right? So look, well, let me go back. We're gonna trigger it. We're gonna trigger our invincibility. We could technically get it off, barely, but then we have to, trigger these. We're gonna trigger a couple of more until we get it back. And then we'll try, we'll try to get it, and the animation takes way too long for us to try to get it. And honestly, the trade-off isn't good enough for me to want to do that when I can just consistently do millions of damage with my 1 in 3 without worrying about whether or not I'm going to be able to do it or not. Now, if you run out for some reason, you're still going to trigger that ambush, like I said, so you still can get that big boost in damage as a last resort. But as far as actively using this inside of the active camouflage re-triggering, I don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's something that you should incorporate. You could, do whatever you want, as I always say, but it's something that I would advise against. When you think about colossi, and we're going to shift because this passive ambush is not unique to ambushed. Remember, that is her base passive. So if we move over to area suppression, has it's the base cooldown is 20 seconds. And it has a pretty high MP cost. So you do want to make sure that you can, recoup some of the MP. But we drop it with all of our cooldown mods here. We drop it to about 5 seconds. So one of the bases behind this build is on critical hit to an enemy, your cooldown decreases by 1 second and you get a max HP boost, all of that fun stuff, right? So you get a max dagger count of times 20 and times 10 can hit a single enemy at any given time, okay? So what does this mean? This means that we need to hit at least 5 crits in order to be able to instantaneously trigger this. That's why when we're doing it in the center of all of these enemies, and that's gonna come into play in a second, we can just keep doing it because you see all of those crits, we're getting the crit mount. But if we go over here, say we go outside of this range, where we're not going to hit anything, right? If we just hit the ability, we're not hitting any crits. Now we got to wait the full 5 seconds. Now it becomes not so useful of a mod. So this is based on crit, right? You need to be able to make sure you're hitting those crits for this to be triggered instantaneously. So if you're seeing those videos where people are spamming, my videos where I'm spamming this, I'm killing bosses, I'm destroying bosses, it's because I'm able to hit those crits. And what's important to understand about hitting those crits, and there's a reason why I'm standing in the center of them, and there's a reason when you see a lot of those bossing builds or bossing videos, the people are really right up underneath the bosses, right? They're right up on the bosses. The reason why is her regular 4, when triggered, allows you to actually target. I'm going to move to a different build here, right? Her regular 4, when I trigger it, it allows me to target all of these people. And then when I actually trigger it, all of the actual daggers fly in a very specific direction, targeting those people, right? But when in area suppression, all of the daggers fly in a very consistent 360-degree radius. So in order for us to hit 10 on a single target, we really need, like a colossi, you see that? Now I'm not triggering it because I'm way out here. But in order for me to trigger 10 on a given target, we need to try to make sure that we can get a 360-degree attack. So that means being really, really close to the colossi so that as we're spinning around, all of them we're maximizing the opportunity for at least 10 of them to hit so that we can start to spam it. That is how this one works. But what I was saying about ambush works in this state too. If you notice, when I'm fighting any colossi, sometimes you'll notice me go invisible before I actually attack. And the reason why, and way before I attack, is because I'm waiting for this invisibility to run out so that ambush is now triggered. And now you notice it went from 400, right? Now, if I do this, I'm doing 408, 440, 440, 440, right? But if I do invisibility, right, and I'm triggering in my invisibility, now I'm doing 800 because ambush is being triggered out of the invisibility.
Initiating stealth operation.
800, I'm 100%, right? I'm doubling my output by just being invisible. This is really important. To trigger that ambush, we need to trigger active camouflage. That's really important, right? So if you're wondering why maybe you're struggling a bit, is like you're spamming, and then when you get to trigger that invisibility because then you can spam for a boost of damage. That's how this ability works. And I'll have a link again for anyone that has not seen my area suppression build. I'll link that as well. So you'll have the ambushed and the area suppression builds up here somewhere. But thank you. Hopefully this helps understand her new mods and how to use them, when to use them a little bit better. And you can choose your use case. I would personally go area suppression for colossi, especially soloing colossi. You've seen the video of me doing that on every colossi that you can solo. You solo them in under 30 seconds, honestly. And for the dungeons, this works as well too, but for the dungeons, I would probably stray closer to ambushed, especially if you're going in with someone that needs more of a carry. Maybe you don't have anyone else on your team that has AoE builds like Freyna, Bunny, Biessa, Valby. So you want to use an ability that allows you to take minimal amount of damage and do a massive amount of output damage. Then I would go with ambushed. They're both super fun. They're both super useful. It makes Sharen, makes me fall in love with Sharen all over again. Don't forget to do all of the things you're supposed to do, like, subscribe, follow, share, comment. Let me know what you think about this video. And if you would like to see me explain more abilities of other characters, let me know that as well. So thank you again, and I will see you on the next one.